Alright, everybody, can I have your attention, please? How y'all doing? Let me have your attention, please. Thank you so much for being so patient with us as we've gotten our Facebook Live up and running. Hello, Facebook. How are we doing tonight? Do we have anybody watching right now?
2 people.
Yay, 3 people. And we have this room full of wonderful neighbors. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight. For those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Tony Zavidson. I am the treasurer for Glencliff Neighborhood Group. We did as you guys know about being here tonight, we did a survey. I see a lot of familiar faces. I see you, maybe I don't know. How many of you guys are from Woodline? Raise your hand. Okay, we got quite a few Woodline people. Awesome. The rest of you guys are from Glencliff, and raise your hands for me. Yeah, I remember. I see a lot of familiar faces. Thank you guys for coming tonight. As you guys know, we have the survey results we're going to go over tonight. Originally, this meeting was supposed to be for the 16th United Group. They had postponed their meeting because they are gathering a little bit more data on that. Julie, would you like to come up and say something about that real quick? So I'd like to introduce Julie James, head of the steering committee of 16th United. She has a quick announcement for you guys before we get started.
Like Tony said, we had planned to have our meeting tonight, but now we've got some save the dates. Want everybody to try to come out on August 21st. The location is still being finalized, but we're going to have the council member there and a bunch of other people, hopefully from the planning and from metro departments, to answer questions that you might have in regards to the survey that we put out. It was a little bit different than the ones from the neighborhood associations, and we have flyers, and there's still a QR code to that survey. If you haven't filled one out, just holler at me and I'll pass these out. But we'd love to have everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right, well, without further ado, let's get started. Katie, if you would, please. So we decided to do this survey in response to the proposed zoning by our council member who's here tonight. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Welsch. That would change over 300 acres of Radnor and Glencliff from the RS zoning to RM20 and RM40. And due to its indefinite deferment, we took it upon ourselves to ask you guys what you would like to see and get your voices heard. So, and this is also part of an ongoing conversation. And as data continues to roll in, we'll continue to share that with you guys. So we did 3 in-person sessions. We did 1 on Zoom. We also did an online survey, which some of you may have seen on Typeform. And we also did a short presentation with National Noticias in Spanish. We had some people view, but not a lot of people actually interacted with it. So we're going to work to continue to involve more of our diverse community. And thank you to all 94 respondents for coming in and giving us your thoughts, because this would not be possible without you guys. Go ahead. Okay. So for the neighborhood interiors, dados were the most popular, with 56 respondents saying they could see them either in the neighborhoods or throughout, even on the corridors. Followed by HPRs, which are the 2 houses on 1 lot, 2 single-family homes on 1 lot, and duplexes. And as you can see, the trends kind of go down from there. We did have some people online say that they would like to see some of the higher density, but those were about 10% of all respondents. And also the use of dados works in conjunction with the housing study that was done this last year. It was part of their immediate recommendations. So for along corridors, we had about 35 people say they'd be willing to see more higher density and mixed use buildings along the corridors of Nolensville Pike and Thompson Lane. As you can see, low-rise flats had about 35 respondents, and it went down from there. And then some of the smaller, lighter density was even less popular along the corridors. But most people could say, a lot of people said they'd like to see mixed use types of housing and commercial spaces along Nolensville Road. We also fielded 15 different neighborhood attributes to see what people thought was higher priority and what was lower priority. The highest priority that we saw was adding infrastructure for sidewalks. Make sure that new builds could be far enough back from the road to allow for sidewalks to be built, because we have a lot of streets in this neighborhood that don't have sidewalks, and we've had a lot of fatalities from that, as y'all know. We also would like to see more police and safety in the neighborhood. It goes down from there down to roof slope was the lowest rated on that one, so that was interesting to see that. And then I also did a short and sweet little Venn diagram here of how Glencliff and Woodbine compare. Huh?
You can't read that, but you could read it.
Yeah, I'll read it to you guys. So for Glencliff and Woodbine, Glencliff prioritized more single-family zoning and duplexes in neighborhood interiors. They have a preference for gradual transition zones, whereas Woodbine was not as favorable, but more favorable to general density like townhouses, house courts, and flex houses, so 3 to 4 units per building, some a little bit more. What we're both in favor of is DADUs. We all support development along the corridors. We prioritize sidewalks, the tree canopy, adequate parking for increased density, prioritize economic and ethnic diversity, protecting historic homes, and we all want increased police safety in both neighborhoods. And I know that in Woodbine, there's a bigger concern because y'all are closer to 440, so y'all have more trespassers and trouble with that over there. Whereas we have a lot of speeding and a lot of, well, y'all have speeding too, but it's kind of an initiation. When on my street, if you get your mailbox hit, that's how you know you're going to stay there a long time. So we have a lot more in common than we have in contrast. So that's all I have for you guys on this. It's just short and sweet. We're going to make this the rest of this tonight about the live Q&A with the planning department's Greg Claxton and our council member Ginny Welsch. If y'all come up here, please. Y'all can sit over here. Appreciate y'all being here. Oh, thank you. Now let y'all know we're going to have. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. We're going to have a little bit of, like I said, Q&A. It's going to be the rest of the time here. Everybody's going to have 2 minutes to ask a question. And we're going to maintain a decorum here, guys. We're going to keep it respectful, we're going to keep it classy, and we're going to just get some answers tonight. So thank you so much.
My question is, the housing study came out. The infrastructure study is coming. When will we know about the infrastructure coming? Because that's my biggest concern. Our infrastructure, I'm in Glencliff, and the infrastructure is old. We just had a gully washer, and I was watching the water go down the middle of the street and through my ditch, and I know I will have people's driveways that are gravel in the ditch. So that's my thing.
Thank you all so much for having me out. My name is Greg Claxton. I'm with the Nashville Planning Department. The question was about the project that we're working on right now, which we're calling Housing and Infrastructure. It was a request from council about a year ago to take a look at our zoning code in light of how much housing we need in the next 10 years, and also to think about whether we have the infrastructure in place today or plan for to support that growth and to recommend changes. And so we kind of had a couple of pieces come out. First was a big set of findings about our zoning code, the complexities of infrastructure, as well as the state of the housing market. That was released in March. Earlier this month, we released a follow-up to that with recommended changes to the zoning code, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. Then the third piece that we anticipate for later this year, hopefully October, is looking at the infrastructure part. And so thinking about kind of where we grow, what kind of infrastructure we need for what kind of growth, and how we link that together with any sort of rezoning that we might explore later on after that. So our goal is to think about improving the code, the zoning code, looking at kind of what it takes to accommodate future development with infrastructure, and we're thinking very broadly: water, sewer, transportation, stormwater, but also facilities and services like access to parks, libraries and community centers, fire stations, that kind of thing. So all of that work is underway now, and we hope to have it later this year, again, hopefully October. So I think that was your precise point as to when.
Come on, Greg. Come on down. The price is right.
And I'm speaking into this.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. So my question is, when looking at the density maps in Nashville, the census density maps, our neighborhood is already higher density. Bellevue has a lot lower density, Green Hills has a lot lower density. So like, why are these changes being proposed for our neighborhood specifically when we're already a high density, low green space neighborhood in Nashville?
The question was, did everybody hear that? You want me to repeat it?
I can say it again. So, looking at the maps, we have already a really high density neighborhood. So, the census maps all say that our neighborhood is a lot higher than Bellevue, than Green Hills, and a lot of these other areas which already have infrastructure. So my question is, why is our neighborhood being chosen when we're already very high density for Nashville?
Thank you for the question. Nashville has a lot of different kinds of places. We've got very dense housing and office space downtown. We've got an inner ring of fairly dense suburbs. We've got some lower density suburban areas, but then we've also got some rural areas. And so for our process, we're thinking about kind of what is the right thing for each neighborhood based on infrastructure, based on sort of transit service, based on services and amenities, and trying to match to that. We are taking a countywide view. So within housing infrastructure, this is not an doing engagement specific to kind of the Glencliff Pike corridor, but we are not focusing on kind of this district or this neighborhood. We are thinking about kind of how all of the different pieces of the county fit together.
Excuse me. And for our district, because of what people say they want in this district in terms of the amenities, they want more walkability, they want more of the development on Nashville Pike. The way we get that, we have to have more density for that. Plus, overall in the city, we need more affordable housing. And we don't, when we tend to build the pikes, like you will see throughout Nashville, most of the development on pikes are larger apartment complexes and things. And we want to make sure that we're also providing other types of housing, a variety of types of housing that go across the entire socioeconomic level, so that people are not displaced from their neighborhood, but they're also not forced to be renters all the time. We have a lot of built corridors here that have a lot of empty apartment space, so we want to see apartments have their place, but we also want to see that variety of housing, because that variety of housing is what allows a whole variety of different people in different socioeconomic buckets to be able to stay in the city. And because we are one of the few districts right now that can actually absorb some of that density with our property, that's why I'm looking at doing that, so that we can expand that, so that we can keep people in the neighborhood who want to stay here in the neighborhood, and have that variety of housing, that kind of missing middle housing that we're missing.
So what are the metrics for us being able to absorb that kind of housing? Like, you say we can absorb that kind of housing here, and I'm just curious why, when our housing density is so much higher, aren't we by definition less capable of absorbing the higher density, especially when it comes with the city planning issues I'm sure you know more about, such as, high density, urban, heat island effect, all of these things that can really contribute to a loss of quality of life in high density, previously redlined neighborhoods.
Well, I think the numbers that you're looking at with the census are actually physical population. We might have more population, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have more housing.
No, we have more density. It's specific to housing density and people per acre, not households.
Again, people per acre is based on numbers of actual people. That doesn't mean, we have people here who live, extended families who live in houses, and people that want to stay in houses, and we don't actually have the housing to keep those people here. So our district has not grown since the census in 2010, basically. We're one of the few that didn't have any growth because we don't really have the housing to have more people come here. So we need to look at that as more than just that number, because we're losing a lot of our younger people who can't afford to stay here, and we're losing a lot of our workforce here that can't afford to stay here. They're having to move out to farther counties because they can't find that variety of housing on the different price points. I mean, Nashville, as we all know, is an expensive city. Housing here is very expensive, as we've just seen in our reappraisal here.
But if you mention that we have these corridors with empty apartments, how will we putting more apartments, more housing here change that? Shouldn't we be renovating and utilizing those spaces that are already being developed, that already have a level of infrastructure in place, as opposed to getting rid of backyards and the things that really provide ecosystem services in our area?
Well, there's nothing that guarantees that increasing the number of houses is going to get rid of backyards. There are different ways. If you're talking people want dodges, that's an extra. That is an extra unit on a property that doesn't necessarily get rid of the backyard. You know, many people don't want to live in an apartment. They would like to be a homeowner. So they want to be able to have. We want to be able to offer a variety of choices to people as they live, and people who want to stay here in this area. As we've seen in this district, the development has been in the 17th district, and then it jumps up to, what is that, the 26th next week? The 25th and 26th districts. It's kind of skipped over us because we don't have the density that's needed to support a lot of the development on the pikes. So, and I don't think that we should be limiting the choices that people have for housing simply to apartments. You know, apartments are also very expensive, and they don't allow people to have a stake and to build. Homeownership is the biggest source of increasing your wealth. And as we see in our populations here, only 1% of all the housing available in Nashville right now is affordable to Black families. That has to change, and the only way to change that is for us to either build more housing to meet that need. And the study shows that we need 90,000 more units in the next. We probably need 35 or 40 right now to service the people we already have here. With our level of growth, we're going to need 90,000 new units. There's not really a way around it. We don't just want to build apartments. We want to be able to build single family, to keep neighborhoods looking as neighborhoods and being neighborhoods.
So you said it won't take away backyards, but by definition, putting a second, it's an impervious surface, you're putting another roof, you're putting another housing, you are taking away square footage, you're increasing housing density. You said it's based on a number. Density is a number as well. It's number of people per whatever unit. So no matter what, it's population. And to say that by putting in extra houses in the back is not going to be taking away backyards is factually untrue.
You might be taking away some part of a backyard, but you're not taking necessarily an entire backyard. You can walk around the district now and see dodgers that are here in the district. There are 200 dodgers just in this area behind here, and you can see that there are still backyards.
And we are not currently under the same density that's trying to be pushed, right? We are already having these, so how much would that exacerbate our current problem, which we do have problems with stormwater, we do have problems with resources and all of these things already. And so I guess for the planning, it goes back to my original question of there are other neighborhoods with less people, lower density, less impervious surfaces, and more resources. Bellevue is a great example. Why is it that our neighborhood needs to have these? Because I understand what you're saying about people wanting to stay in their communities. I definitely don't want to leave my community, and I am a young person who moved to this community. But why is it that if this is a Nashville-wide problem, this neighborhood specifically is facing these kinds of high-density issues?
So one thing I want to clarify with myself and the council member up here is we have an ongoing process through housing infrastructure that is not yet at the mapping place, where we're thinking countywide. We're thinking about.
It doesn't.
So the question was, if we are looking countywide, why is there a focus on District 16?
When other areas have less people
When other areas have,
and more infrastructure.
when other areas have fewer people and more infrastructure. And so where we are at in our process is studying kind of the infrastructure capacity that's part of our question, but we are not yet at a point where we have made recommendations. And I don't expect our recommendations to focus on a single neighborhood or a single district. So what we are working on, and I'm just providing that as context for what the planning department is doing, That is distinct from the council member's proposal from a couple months ago. And so I want to be really clear, we are taking kind of a countywide look. We are thinking about the capacity available in different areas, whether it's infrastructure, access to services and amenities, access to transit, that kind of thing. We don't have a recommendation yet, but we are working our way there.
And is that the?
One more question, we're
Sorry.
allowed to look it up.
I will.
Thank you. I appreciate all the questions, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask.
Right. Is that what you're saying was coming out in October?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And that's accessible to anybody, right? That's going to be on the city website. Any of us can read it.
And the question was accessibility and future work. Yes, all of the things we've done so far, plus prior work, is all on our website. The future reports will be there as well. Any information on upcoming meetings, opportunities to sort of participate, will be on the website as well. Yes, it is engage.nashville.gov/housing and infrastructure. Housing and infrastructure. If I get a moment, I'll put it on the whiteboard. If there's a mark on this one.
Thank you. Just for clarification from the city, is there a definition, an actual metric for quote-unquote affordable housing, and what is it? Is it a number based on income or based on housing prices or rent prices? That's my question. Don't hear that?
So there are several definitions. So the question was about whether there are definitions of affordable housing, and there's a couple that I want to put out there, but I also want to make clear, to some extent, we're just thinking about kind of anyone who can afford their place to live. For that broadest level of affordability, the usual metric for that is spending 30% of your income on housing. So wherever you are, if you're high income, 30% of high income on your housing is affordable. If you're low income, 30% of your housing or 30% of your income on housing is affordable. In terms of specific affordable housing, that is where there's some kind of subsidy for it, from the state, from Metro, or from the federal government, that has a more specific measure. Those are measurements put out by the Department of Housing and Urban Development that's based on the total region, so that the immediate income in the entire region, based on the number of people in your household. Now that's for like subsidized housing, where it's income restricted. So that is mostly not what we're talking about in housing infrastructure. We're mostly talking about kind of whatever the market is going to charge. And it's kind of that 30% is considered affordable.
Is this program, I gotta use a mic, is this program residential people or is it for commercial, like a hotel?
In terms of my proposal? No, residential only.
Well, let me tell you a quick story. I live on the park. The house downstream from me, they came in there and tore the house down, they built 6 units together, real tall, blocks of stuff. Also blocks of drainage. Nobody ever called me from flood control, which is asking to. I still got to get with it. It floods my backyard. So you need better inspection from codes on these. And to me, they rent these units out by the day. There's only people there on the weekend, mostly, partly, but it's okay, I pardon myself. So that's more like a hotel to me than an apartment. So,
Well, that issue with STRs is a whole other issue.
from the beginning, they should have, if that's considered commercial, and known that these people are going to do, it's not a B&B, it's just a B. They don't serve breakfast, so you just rent your units out by the day. And that's more like a hotel to me, that don't help residential people. They paved the backyard, filled it up, backfilled it where it's about 3 feet above my lot, the wall. But that's okay, I'm going to pursue that flood department. I might call you again.
They told me they talked to you.
They sent a young man out, he listened all to me, And I get through, and I told him what they couldn't fix. He says, I can't help you, I'm not with the flood control department. I called the flood control department.
We can talk about that after the meeting.
That's it.
I remember now.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Anna. I've moved to Woodbine last fall, but I've been a Nashville resident since 2008 and practicing interior design here in Nashville for 12 years and also have 10 years of experience in real estate investing. So one thing that I noticed when I read the initial zoning proposal, and first of all, I want to say, I think this neighborhood is so unique because we have all these incredible, diverse cultures here and so many wonderful businesses. And I found it really remarkable that it was just kind of a blanket zoning across the whole neighborhood and only really focused on residential. So I wanted to ask, from the planning perspective, what sort of strategies are you considering to allow some of those small business owners a place to stay in this neighborhood as well as residents? And I think it's also important for us as a community to understand that densification is going to continue to happen. It's going to be part of Nashville's future. So it's really good that we're having these conversations to understand what our values are as a community and bring that to light. So my first question is, what are some solutions to integrate commercial and residential spaces together? And then also, what are some possible future plans to increase safety and availability along our beautiful greenways, where we've also seen some fatalities recently that I think we would love to see safer for people to enjoy nature and walking in our community.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that question. I mostly don't have a good response to the commercial piece. So specifically, we were asked to take a look at residential affordability and sort of opportunities for people to have a place to live. That's not commercial, kind of new commercial spaces isn't something we're able to take a look at through this process. That said, whenever we have a small area study that does take a more focused look at a particular area, that's one of the things we try to think about. That said, the major corridors in Owensville, like all of those can support both the commercial that's there now, plus if they rebuild as kind of vertical mixed use, they would be able to do commercial on the ground floor as well. So, there's still opportunity for that. The corridors are pretty healthy. And finding opportunities for lower cost commercial space is a big challenge, but I think that's probably a little bit more of a look. In terms of the greenways, again, that's not something that the planning department oversees, but the parks department is updating their parks master plan that includes a large greenways component. So there is, if you kind of look for that update, there is an opportunity to talk to them about what their future plans are right now.
And I'm actually on the Greenways Commission. I'm going to be rolling on soon, but in terms of the Greenways, they are adding lights to some of the more remote greenways. They're upping park patrols and things, and then they're looking at other things that they might be able to do to make them safer. Generally, our greenways are pretty safe, and we're very lucky for that. But when we have problems, they're looking at various ways that they can do it with increasing patrols and increasing lighting. I'm also working with small businesses. I'm working with one of the banks here to see if we can figure out a program that would allow small business owners to get 0 interest or 0.5% interest loans that wouldn't come due for, say, 3 to 5 years. So you could borrow money to get started. You could actually get your feet on the ground, and before you would have to start paying back, so that you could weather those first couple of years, that it takes for a business to get going. So that's something that I'm working with people on, and hopefully we'll have that in the next year. I mean, it takes a while to do that, and that we'll be able to attract more small businesses to the corridor here.
All right, next question, please. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I just want to clarify my question from earlier. Well, I know that 30% is your guideline. I'm not talking about, federal subsidies. My actual question is, does Metro Nashville specifically, in regard to housing development, have a specific metric about what affordable housing means?
without the use of subsidies, because we know there's waiting lists for almost all people in need. So in other words, is there some kind of action force initiative that would define, say, the moving average median of Nashville, and that some rental properties would need to be available for 30% of that price? Is there anything like that, and is there a definition with specific numbers, or is it just up to developers? Thank you.
So for new construction or anything that's on the private market, unless we have some subsidy or bonus involved, Metro is prohibited from requiring developers or property owners to lease at a certain rent. We're prohibited from doing rent control. We're prohibited from sort of establishing a sales price for housing. That's where sort of the subsidy piece comes in, because that's our tool for that. Within housing infrastructure, one of the things we'll be rolling out is a new tool that the state has allowed that lets us go beyond just a subsidy and offer a bonus. That's something where once that program is set up, once standards are set for it, if you're able to do, for example, 3 stories under your current zoning, we could say, well, you can go up to a 4th story, but in exchange for that, you have to set aside a percentage of specifically affordable units. And so that's part of what we're developing, like what those specific metrics and recommendations would be. But that is the other tool that we have. Otherwise, if it's just monitoring what the private market is doing, then it's using the kind of census data we talked about earlier, understanding kind of what the typical rent is in Nashville, what the typical home value is, what cost burden is. It's those kind of things that we monitor, but there's not one thing that we kind of regulate to unless we have that subsidy or bonus.
And this is one of the things that, why it's important that we get a variety of different housing types, because by their nature, the housing types run a gamut of price points. And so hopefully the idea, and it's worked in other cities, is that it actually brings the cost down, and smaller units and whatever are more affordable just by their very nature as they're built. So that's the goal as we continue to build.
Thank you both for being here. I have a question for each of you. First, I wanted to ask the council person, I think a lot of us are pretty familiar with the proposal that was put before the Planning Commission, and there were a lot of community concerns that were raised. We appreciate you being here to talk to us about future plans, and I wanted to know what is the plan for your proposal that was made, what are the next steps, and how are we going to be part of the conversation on that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. When I first started realizing what it is that we needed to do to get what people tell me that they want in the district in terms of all the amenities, I had a meeting last fall, and basically the people attending the meeting were the same people who attend a lot of meetings, and I realized we needed to broaden that conversation. So as I figured out a way, how can I broaden this conversation and get more people involved, I decided the best way to do that was to do what I did: submit legislation, make planning have to send out all that expensive notice to everyone, and bring people into the conversation. My plan originally was to have a meeting earlier than I did in the spring, but I got COVID, and by the time I got well, that train had left the barn in terms of what people were saying about my proposal, and there was no catching up to that. But my plan all along has been to do exactly what happened, to have this conversation. There are now hundreds and hundreds of people involved in this conversation from the entire district, which is what I wanted, so that we can actually bring more people in, because any rezoning we do on any level essentially affects everyone somehow. And so that conversation, it's not been pretty, obviously, for everyone, but that is what I intended to do, is broaden the conversation, and that's happened, and I'm very glad about that. It was always part of the plan to defer this, to get all of this feedback, to get housing and infrastructure study feedback, and then craft some new legislation that will meet the needs going forward, what everyone says that they want going forward. So my hope is that sometime in the fall, we can come together and have something that'll work, so that we can change the zoning in the way that we need to so people can get what they want, and we can start hopefully attracting, getting more housing for people who need it, keeping more people in our neighborhood, and hopefully attracting more development on the Pike, because we'll have increased the number of people who can access the Pike.
So given that a large part of the plan was waiting for the information that's come out of the housing infrastructure study, is your intent to allow the planning department to do what they've been tasked by the Metro Council to do and lead the charge on how rezoning occurs and spreading that rezoning across all of the districts and not centralizing it in any single particular district?
Planning isn't charged with leading the zoning, and Nashville council members are responsible for zoning their own neighborhood. This is a broad-based, county-wide rezoning that we tasked the planning department with so that we could have a comprehensive rezoning and look at our entire city so that we could, number one, cut the red tape so people can do more things by right with their property. And that we're addressing the need overall, so that when you rezone certain areas, it takes pressure off other areas, right? So we know that if with the study, if we are able to get the housing and infrastructure study recommendations put in place over the entire city, that the city will grow more intentionally in the way that we want our city to grow. So we can ultimately lower housing prices, give us more variety of housing, and we can protect what we want to protect in certain areas. We can grow in other areas that can handle it. So they're taking a very comprehensive view citywide, as each individual council member looks at their own district and figures out, what needs to be done in that district. I've said this before. I get, 10 to 15. Now I'm actually getting 15 to 20 requests to rezone every month here in the district. And it's more problematic when you try to rezone piecemeal. That's how people have told me that they don't want to become the nations. Well, the nations became the nations because the entire area wasn't rezoned at once. So that when they did it all piecemeal and it came up, they only have one tool to use. And we don't want to do that. We want to see that as we continue to grow, because we will continue to grow, that we have options, but we also have guidelines in terms of design and the look so that we can keep the feel of the city while addressing these needs that are not going to go away unless we take this kind of action. So does that answer your question?
No.
Okay, so in other words, the planning department was not responsible for my rezoning. That was solely on me. So,
okay, yes.
And planning does not lead the zoning in districts. Council members lead the zoning in districts.
So my understanding is that council requested planning.
We requested the study.
Correct.
So, and that's what's coming out now is the study, the
So
results
that
of
will
the
follow the
study.
study, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully what comes out, the actual recommendations of the study will make some of the things that my colleagues and I are doing, that we won't need to do those anymore because we'll have something that's more standardized. But with all due respect to my colleague, planning has a tendency not to hit their deadlines. And so we just have to kind of keep moving forward as we push and accept their recommendations as they come, but it's not out. We don't know what's the middle housing look, what it's going to look like and stuff like that. So we don't really have time to wait to move.
Let's go on to the next question. Thank you.
Ooh, Tony.
Hi, I have a question that's more for the planning, I think, and it's kind of, what are you doing? I noticed on the overmaps that there's a huge area where it's wanting to be rezoned just right off Antioch Pike, by the Wright Middle School, that area, with a lot of the side streets. They all fit in, or they all feed into Antioch Pike, and yet somehow somebody has taken Antioch Pike from being a 4-lane and has put tires up to make it a 2-lane with bike, and there's already sidewalks on both sides. So I kind of question if we're going to talk about an area that we're wanting to do more density, and yet and traffic is already an issue, now we're making the road narrower, you know, and making it harder for traffic. It's like, what are you thinking?
So I'll provide sort of a follow-on big picture. I'm not closely involved in that project. That's out of the Department of Transportation. But I'll let Councilmember talk about the specifics of that, and then maybe I'll try to put in a little bit of context.
So that project is actually, that originated with the Department of Transportation, with NDOT, in response to the number of crashes and the speeding and the difficulties people were feeling like they could live in their neighborhood and walk and bike and do things without it being dangerous. We do talk to each other. What is on Antioch Pike right now is a pilot. Before they put that in, they did studies to see how much traffic is there, and there's really only traffic during the rush hours. I mean, basically, there's not as much traffic as you might perceive on Antioch Pike in terms of all the studies. The pilot has lowered the average speed limits on Antioch Pike by about 8 miles an hour, which is huge, especially if someone is unfortunate enough to be hit by a car. But they are gathering data right now on Antioch Pike to see whether or not this pilot, which would put bike lanes on both sides of, as you see now, along with the sidewalks, will make that street safer. And then they're also looking at what they can do over on McCall to make that safer, to lower the speed limit. And they will make recommendations. This is a year-long pilot, so they will be making recommendations the beginning of next year. I can't remember when they actually put it in. I think it was March. They'll be making recommendations about that, what they want to do permanently. They may decide to do just a bike lane on one side. They may, I don't know but they're looking at that and gathering data all the time.
Actually, that was very comprehensive. I have nothing to add.
Love that.
All right, next question, please, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here tonight. I appreciate your openness with us. I want to go back to some of the earlier questions that got asked because I'm still a little bit confused. We have a city with 35 districts in it of varying sizes, varying ethnic groups, varying income levels, etc. Varying amounts of space available. There were already a couple of questions about how can we equalize the expectation across districts for increasing density. And I wonder if you could be clear on that answer. Is there an intention to try to equalize the impact on various districts? Or is there an expectation that our district, because it's an inner city district, should bear more of the responsibility for meeting Metro's need for housing?
So that is part of what we'll be reporting out on in, like I said, I hope October, is how we see kind of the framework for where we can accommodate growth, where we would recommend exploring opportunities to accommodate growth. I don't know that we will seek to say that every district ought to have the same amount of growth, in part because each district has different levels of infrastructure. Like the concerns that y'all have of like what happens with stormwater, what the roadway capacity is, what is my ability to walk around safely, like all of that varies district by district. And so that is part of the assessment that we're doing to try to figure out not a district goal, but overall, kind of what are the pieces that need to be in place, and then seeing where those pieces are. It may be that there are areas that have a lot of infrastructure and are well suited for it, but it's only a little bit of one district. I don't think we would see that as an issue. It may be that there are some areas that are well suited for it that are kind of most of what a district is. I think we'll try to play it safe or straight and think about kind of where the infrastructure is and where's the opportunity to build complete communities. I don't know that we'll look at it as every district ought to take the same amount. If that's something y'all feel strongly about, let me know, but that's like off the top of my head, given the task that we've been given to think about the infrastructure side and how that works with the housing, I think that's where we would land. But again, we don't have that recommendation yet. We're doing that assessment right now.
Next question, please. Come on up.
So hey, I'm Carly. I live in Woodbine, and thanks for having the conversation. I think there's a lot of emotion, and like I just appreciate, to be frank, that the ability to be heard. And so like seriously, thank you. In that being said, in this process I learned a lot, right, by becoming part of the conversation. And don't be mad. In that I will say thank you, because like learning is everything. I have a question for Greg, right? Mr. Greg, you're a part of the planning department, which I know the planning commission and department are separate, but you were part of that group that did the research when the council member came to the planning commission, correct? And the commission gave their recommendation or not, right? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
that was awesome, by the way, because I read through that and that was like super helpful information. And I know there were things in there that weren't supportive of your plan. And with that being said, I think one of my concerns overall, and also this timer thing is really I'm like super stressed to be up here.
You're doing great.
And I really hate that this is live. I'm just wondering, so like Nashville Next was in this awesome plan that involved so many people, and it designated neighborhoods for maintenance, right? For certain neighborhoods to be preserved, and what that actual preservation meant. And but Nashville Next did that with the growth of thousands and thousands of houses in mind. So my question, two things. One is that, with the proposal you brought, I think one thing that like kind of was really disheartening was the extent of it. It was just so many things. The UDO had so many aspects and varying aspects, right? Some for people who were building single homes, some for people who were building multi-homes, and so many aspects of that. And then a drastic change in the zoning. But then also that planning came out and said, I mean, I have the quotes, deeply inconsistent, and insufficient infrastructure, which we talked about. But more importantly, it said that, RM20 isn't generally recommended a zoning designation with the T3 neighborhood maintenance policy. Basically planning said this doesn't, the changes didn't follow what we were zoned, or what the Nashville Next plan had been zoned for originally, right? And we all understand things pivot. But is there a way that, one, this conversation can be continued, like, either, if it's gonna be a drastic change, like if the proposal is gonna be a big proposal, could we have many, many more meetings? And then can we send notifications out via mail? Because I got this text to come here 30 minutes from Katie, who already left, of a screenshot of Facebook, so I didn't know about this. And I would have liked to know, and would have liked to come like more prepared with like intelligent questions to ask you instead of being like, can you just confirm what's happening? So like, can we do, if you are thinking of, would you consider, if you're thinking of a similar proposal, would you consider doing monthly meetings like 6 months in advance every month and sending something physically out in the mail that we could be notified? And then also with planning, since the planning, like, are they pivoting now, I guess? I mean, they're gonna take back what they said about the proposal? Yeah, I'm confused. I'm real confused here.
Well, can you start, Greg?
Sure. Yeah. So the planning department did issue a staff report making a recommendation on the UDO and the zoning proposal. I reviewed that report, but I did not write it. And so my memory of it is going to be a little hazy. My recollection is what we recommended was partial support. So there were areas that we thought were inconsistent, but there were areas where we thought, it was broadly consistent with Nashville Next. So it was a little bit of trying to fine tune around the issues of infrastructure that we've been talking about.
So can I clarify with you? You said that the department was of partial support.
That's my recollection.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that's my yes.
Okay.
And so I forgot the questions.
Because that's just not what I read. Like, I didn't read.
It sounds like you've got it on your phone.
I didn't read like partial support, I read like what they did, like what they, yeah.
It sounds like you've got it on your phone. I'd be happy to sort of take a look at it with you after.
Yeah.
And sort of say, this is the part I'm thinking of when I say partial support. This is, I see where you're saying. Because there were areas that I think we recommended against, for sure.
There were significant
Yeah.
areas where you recommended against, yeah.
So was it just clarifying on the?
That and then but like, is the planning department going to do a new, like?
Okay, yeah. So are we pivoting to do something different?
Right.
And this is just the complexity of kind of a lot of people kind of trying to do something about the housing issue at the same time. So within housing and infrastructure, we have a process where we've kind of issued our findings back in March. We've made some recommendations for changes to the zoning code that are getting underway at the end of this month. And then we will have, kind of following that, a process where we engage around changes to the zoning map. So that is based on the recommendations that we've been putting forward, but it is distinct from what the council member is doing. And it's just a little bit of,
Does that follow national next?
Yes, that will follow national next.
So NM neighborhoods will remain NM, or whatever.
So what we've said is that we will be guided by national next. We'll work within the current community character policy framework.
Yeah.
If there are areas that we think are important enough and urgent enough that we would recommend something that's in conflict with the community character policy, we would recommend amending the policy, which is what we recommended to property owners when they want to zone change that's out of step with the policy. We would recommend
So you'll going against what was originally planned, correct? The neighborhood, I know there's three different things. There's national next, there's the neighborhood plan or whatever, and there's like three separate kind of things that kind of fall down.
It would change the policy, but we would bring something that is in support of kind of the larger national next vision and framework.
Okay, can we move on to the next question about doing monthly? No, just going to answer your question about doing monthly meetings now.
Well, actually, I did want to say something that the planning department actually supported all of the RM40. They had a problem with the RM20 because it doesn't fit exactly what I argued why I thought that was important. And what I proposed was actually implementing Nashville Next. So that was the planning department did support all the RM40. I can't really commit to all monthly meetings because I don't know what the process is going to be here. But also, you have to have something to actually discuss. You have to have something to look at. This is what I've discovered. You actually have to have something that you can look at and digest. And so that might not necessarily be ready on a month-to-month kind of basis. So this just has to go on with my plan had been to have enough meetings to get input from people all along. But as I say, the horse kind of left the barn on that. But this is all a work in progress. So this is still ongoing. And these conversations are what I wanted, and that's going to be continuing.
So about sending something out via mail, is that something the council or you personally would consider so that we are aware of this?
I would like this meeting tonight. I didn't have anything to do with putting this meeting together, so on this. That would depend on the cost to do that because mail can be expensive. And I want this conversation to be district-wide, and I have 22,000 constituents, so I would just have to see how affordable that is. So I try to get it out in other venues, what do you call that? Other avenues, I think.
Next question, please.
Hey all, my name's Kate. I just want to thank y'all both for being here, for the work you're doing. I hope that other council members will do sort of follow your footsteps in doing stuff. I understand the hesitancy around zoning changes. I get the change is scary, and I think the argument we hear in favor of it is the moral one, which I'm in agreement with, that, I think someone said earlier, less than 1% of neighborhoods in the city are accessible for Black and Hispanic families, and I do think that is a moral failing. My question, I guess, is outside of that reason, when you look at peer cities, let's say Austin, Minneapolis, other peer cities our size who have sort of done rezoning, what other benefits do you see for people who live in the neighborhoods that get upzoned and just for the communities overall when it comes to vibrancy, safety, infrastructure, what other benefits of zoning, if y'all could speak to that?
I think broadly, so, you know, I think that the issues that Nashville is facing in terms of inequities, but also in terms of quality in life, are shared among a lot of different cities. You mentioned Austin and Minneapolis, you know, Charlotte, Atlanta, like lots of different cities are kind of struggling with kind of growth, what it means to be kind of a place where more younger, higher income households are moving into, and kind of how you manage all of that. And so density is sort of the housing market side of that. Like that's kind of where do you find the homes, how do you get them close together, so that, you know, when you walk down the street, you can see neighbors. When, you know, there's, you're supporting kind of a vibrant small business sector, so you can kind of walk to get there or do a short drive, walk around a neighborhood business district, see your friends, see neighbors, get to the things that you need to do, you know, during the day, during the week, so that your kids are safe, kind of walking around and kind of getting around, going to friends' houses, that kind of thing. So it's trying to get to like all of these shifts together, just to, you know, have kind of more areas in Nashville that are walkable, welcoming, and mixed use. I think our targeted strategic approach through Nashville Next is recognizing that there's a lot of benefits to that. There's a lot of people who are looking for that, but not everyone is looking for that. I think that's okay, because it would be very tough for us to provide that countywide. Like the amount of sidewalk construction we would need to do is enormous. And so we're kind of taking this targeted strategic approach so that you kind of create those places, you create those opportunities, you make them vibrant and welcoming, you make them more affordable than they are today. But there's a lot of the county that's still left. Like the vast majority of the county would still be left. And so those are opportunities. If that's not what you want, you can, you know, kind of remain in those areas. And so it's really trying to sort of figure out how do we make a city that works best for people to live the lives that they want to lead, and to find the kind of place, the kind of neighborhood that they're looking for.
Yeah, I would say, I would echo everything that Greg said, but also that we've seen, my proposal was based on Portland, actually, and the success that Portland has had with that, in terms of becoming a less car-centric city, because there's so much more that people can just walk to. And it actually decreased the traffic in that city, and that city also was kind of like a traffic nightmare that Nashville can be. And just in the practical sense, it does attract more development and mixed use and things along the corridors. You know, I've talked to many businesses who would like to come to Noblesville when they do onto the Pike here, but when they do the marketing studies, how many people are within this circle, and how many people are within this circle and this circle, they say there's just not enough people to support the business, and so they don't want to invest the dollars. So when you have that increase in density, it makes it more, less of a risk for people to come and invest, and that adds to the walkability, and that adds to the less car-centricness, and then, you know, it ups the public transit, because the numbers, we base that on how many people use those systems. So it has kind of a net positive thing going on in ripples, you know, around the city.
Next question, please.
So I didn't get to my actual last questions for Greg last time. My first is an issue that's been touched on by a couple of other people, which is confusion about publicity around big changes to our neighborhoods. For example, the councilperson's proposal resulted in postcards that were sent to people, but were very non-specific about that your particular house is going to be rezoned. And I know I've seen in community groups similar concerns about just general planning, publicity about proposed zoning changes, and I'm curious what zoning plans to do, and ideally the council people too, in order to make it clear to people what is being proposed to happen in their neighborhoods.
I think broadly our goal is to get the word out as widely as possible. That's something that kind of building the website, building our email list, having everyone who attends these meetings kind of building that awareness of what we're doing. And then kind of as we go through the text change process, I think that will continue to spread the word. I think people will continue to get interested to find out about what we're doing and follow along. I think in terms of what the specific rezoning process looks like, I think we're still, so we're gonna follow our planning commission guidelines, but I don't think we've sort of laid out exactly what that looks like yet, because we don't know what that's gonna be. So certainly I think property owners should be informed of any proposal for the property. But how do you get the word out to sort of the countywide scale? I think that's something we're thinking about, but it's probably not going to be sort of postcard notices to everybody in the county.
And in terms of district-wide, if your house is in there, if you get a card, you are either, your house is affected somehow, or you're within 1,000 feet of something that is happening. So if you got a card, that is just letting you know that this is going to be something that is right in your area.
I guess I just want to make sure it's communicated that the people receiving the cards are not understanding them the way you think they will be understood. And I think that's important when we're talking about such huge changes to our communities.
Hi, I'm from Woodbine. We have a lot of houses over here that's been for sale. They're selling anywhere from $499,000 and up, and people are now still building single houses. What my question is your proposal that you proposed that went in front of the Metro Council.
Can you hold up the microphone?
Oh,
There you go.
that went in front of the Metro Council, I guess it was April, and then there was a meeting down here in March the 15th or something. There was a bunch of people that showed up down here because we didn't know anything what rezoning or nothing was. And then it was thrown at us that what your proposal is to put 4 houses on each lot, 35 feet high and all, whatever your proposal is that you turned in. Then we went to the planning commission, which I wasn't able to go because I had surgery. And then, is your proposal still out there to go in front of Metro Council for the 4 houses to be built in the neighborhoods over the next 10 years for 16,000 houses to be built over here, Glencliff, Radnor, and Woodbine, because I live in Woodbine. And right now we have a lot of traffic. Glen Rose floods down there, you know, so it's a lot of moving parts that I think a lot of people don't understand. It's the traffic, the piping, you know, the water pipes as far as that. Some of them still on galvanized pipes. I understand the water company needs $130-something million. It's 10 years before they come and replace some of our pipes. I understand that people's responsible for their houses, but is the water pressure, is it gonna take away from our water pressure? You know, so there's just a lot of their fire department, the police departments, you know, raising all of these issues. Right now, we don't have all of that to cover. And I'm a heart patient. So when I need an ambulance, I don't want to park on the side of the road and the ambulance not be able to get to me. And I think in your proposal, it said park in the alleys, and they can park on the street or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to go back and re-look at it, but that's what I understand. But my question is your proposal that you did in front of Metro Council, and then it went in front of the Planning Commission, but it will not go back in front of them. It goes back in front of the Metro Council. If they pass that, that's what we're stuck with, right? That's my question to you.
The proposal that I put out there is still a proposal, but it will be changed based on all these conversations and the housing and infrastructure study, which was the plan from the beginning. So it will be changed. But I think it's really important to understand that zoning in and of itself does nothing. It just gives you options with your property. That you can potentially put 4 houses on your property doesn't mean you have to or you will or whatever. The average person probably doesn't know what their zoning is until they want to do something. Until you want to build something or add an addition or something, you just don't know what your zoning is until you go look and you find out that you can or can't do that. And then you come to a council person and you say, hey, I need to rezone to do what I want to do, right?
I did do that, and they built a 3-story house up there on my street. And the little lady across the street did not know this, so they have no yard, but they put concrete there. And now all the water comes from her driveway over to the neighbor's house and floods.
Well, I mean, they should, when they're approving that with permits, they should know a little bit more about that. It's really important that, I think there's also a thing with these cards that come from Metro government in general, that people just tend to throw them out, because if someone lived across the street, they would have gotten a card from the planning department saying that this was happening, something was happening there. So you gotta pay attention to those. They're pretty nondescript, really. So it's very easy to think they're an ad trying to buy your house or something.
It just says rezoning, it doesn't say what it's rezoning to. The reason I know is because I went to the planning commission in October to see what they were going to do on my street. And he had explained to me what the rezoning code was changing to. It's changing from a single house to 2 houses on the property. But that little card didn't tell me that. It just gave me a rezoning code. They had to tell me that at the codes department.
Yeah, usually they give you the case number or whatever, so you can go online and look, but generally they also kind of tell you what they want to do, at least the last time I looked. But you have to kind of pay attention to those cards. So yes, my proposal is still out there, but it's not going to be, come back again in the same form that it is now. I mean, that was never the plan. The plan was always to get people involved in the conversation and figure out what we want, and then make a decision and move intentionally to get what we want.
So you're not going to try to take that back from Metro Council? The change is going to be made for the public to know?
Changes will be made before anything would go before the Metro Council.
That's what I wanted to know.
I'm back. Okay, so does this mean that your current proposal?
Yeah, a little higher.
Does this mean
closer.
Does this mean that your current proposal is going to be taken, you're going to take it away, redo it, go back to planning, and then resubmit a new one? Like, completely?
It will be adapted based on conversations. I don't know what that'll look like at the end, but it will not be the same proposal, no.
What did you say? I didn't hear that. Did you repeat that, please?
I said it will not be the same proposal that is submitted.
Okay, and then my other question is for planning. So I'm an environmental scientist. I've been a scientist for 9 years. I have multiple degrees in geology, so that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. So we have an endangered species in Mill Creek. It's a crawfish. It only lives there. And like, how is that planning's responsibility? Because I know at different levels there's like Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act, there's Section 9 for private. So is that taken into consideration, or is that up to the developer after zoning has been submitted? Like, if we were rezoned, planning, how did things like that impact?
So I don't know the specifics for endangered species in terms of our kind of land development processes, because it is more of a regional issue for Mill Creek. We do have a team that's looking at kind of a small area study for Cambridge and Antioch right now. I'd be happy to check with them and get your contact information and see how they're taking that into account.
Okay, that'd be great.
One of my first questions would be, are you going to recall the bill?
No.
Wait.
I was asking if she was going to recall the bill.
No, the bill will be changed based on conversations in the housing and infrastructure study.
Yeah, I'll just for this one. It's fine.
My second comment is we're here tonight at the invitation of the Glencliff Neighborhood Group, asking the council lady to come talk to us. We've been ignoring, in my opinion, and maybe I'm not supposed to say that because I'm on the board, but I'll resign to have my own effing opinion. She has done everything she could when we've had meetings with her to not allow the open floor that we've had tonight. That's not fair. Also, I understand that the council lady has told planning before we went to planning, and told other council people on a plane to a conference they were going to, that she had had the neighborhood support in this change that she wants to do, and that was not the truth. And now some of them are not happy. I don't understand why you feel that it is okay to be duplicitous to planning and then yell at them later, and why it is to be duplicitous to us and to your council members just because of something that you want.
I'm not sure that's a question. I haven't been duplicitous with anyone about this at all. At the last meeting, if you were referring to the last meeting here, the moderator of the meeting is the one that suggested questions be given in advance, not me. I had nothing to do with setting up the meeting, so that choice was made by someone else. Anyone who's asked me a question either in person, by phone, or an email has gotten a response to me. And I'm happy to talk to anybody one-on-one, so.
When we were at Cedar Cyanide, is that it? Cyanide cider. Cyanide cider, when we were trying to ask you questions, if it wasn't specifically about what you wanted, we got shut down. Some of the people actually got up and left because their opinion apparently meant nothing to you.
The meeting at Cyanide Cider was about this rezoning, and no, I was not asking questions or taking questions about issues that weren't involved with rezoning. And people left 2 minutes before the meeting was over. So I don't really think this is appropriate here at this meeting to be having this kind of conversation. If you have a problem with me, please come talk to me directly.
Anybody else have any more questions? All right. Line up, everybody.
You said that you would not recall your bill, but it would be changed. Since it's been a while since I've seen, how the government works. How does that process work? When you change the bill, does it go back to planning, or does it go straight to vote? Does that make sense? Walk me through the process as a person who's not involved with government in any way. You go through, you make changes based on planning suggestions, you do whatever changes. What are the steps for the bill past that? What happens? Does it go back to planning and we have further input? Does it go straight to council for a vote? Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Okay, thank you.
I don't know if, as a matter of course, anything goes back to planning, but I will remind you that the planning department supported all the RM40 that I recommended, which won't be in the bill going forward necessarily, won't be the same bill. The bill is amended to, because that bill, it's already assigned a bill number, it's already in process, and the bill is amended. I can work with planning to get recommendations on things, and based on the housing and infrastructure study and what's being recommended, that will happen. That again has been part of that plan. And also incorporating all of the discussion that I've had with this group, other groups, and individual people about this. But that's what happens, the bill is amended, and then it moves through the process. So when the bill is amended, people will see the bill, and you'll be able to comment on the bill and do whatever before it moves through the process.
Next question, please. What is they want you to repeat the process?
The process is the bill will be amended and changed, and then it moves through the process. Eventually, it goes in front of the Metro Council for the additional two readings. There is still a public hearing in front of the Metro Council. With whatever form this bill takes, there will be a public hearing about it in front of the Metro Council. And people will be aware when the new bill, when it comes up.
Does it go back to planning?
No.
Hi, I'm Adara Bruce, and I live over on Sadler Avenue, right off Glenrose. I have, before my question, I have a very quick commercial, which is when you're talking about walkable neighborhoods and all, please don't forget seniors. I mean, I don't think Nashville in general does a good job at all as far as meeting senior needs. And meeting our needs would actually meet some of the housing needs, because we move into senior places. And, you know, it'd be better for everybody. But anyway, so my question is, when I hear that we didn't grow at all by the census, I find that difficult to, because I don't think that is necessarily true. I just wonder if there's just a lot of people who didn't fill out the census, because that happened all over Tennessee. And for our the 16th district, we have got to be one of the most diverse districts in Tennessee, and certainly in Nashville. And I wonder, do we have any information on the people who are different ethnic groups who maybe just didn't fill the census out? Because God knows, I wouldn't fill it out if I was, part of an ethnic group and maybe had issues I didn't want to bring attention to. And so the question is, and you can both answer or whichever. The question is basically, do we have any information that may have happened, that there's just people who just didn't fill it out because maybe lack of knowledge on how to fill it out, or fear on filling it out? And then from there, how do we determine if we have people in our district whose needs aren't being met because we don't know they're here? Or we might know they're here, but we don't actually have real evidence. Yeah, I think somebody said the word, so thank you. That's basically it. It's something that I don't think we've really talked about yet, is the impact of that on the 16th. And certainly their needs are going to be different too in regards to housing. I know during the big flood, there was a apartment building where there was, I believe it was Ethiopian people, I can't recall, it's been a while, but they were in a horrible situation and nobody knew about it for a long time. And it was on the 16th, I think. I mean, they didn't know what to do. A lot of them didn't speak English. Somebody finally found out and they were helped, but that's just an example of the kinds of things that can happen. And perhaps we did grow, and it's just not showing up for that reason. So,
So, after every decennial census, the Census Bureau does do what they call a post-enumeration survey, which they use to try to figure out how accurate the census is. As you mentioned, Tennessee did have the second highest rate of undercounting in the census's estimate, as best as they can figure in the country. They don't provide that at the county level, and they don't provide it at the neighborhood level, unfortunately. So we think there's a 4% undercount across the entire state. But it's tough for me to say, hey, this neighborhood was especially hard hit, that neighborhood was, probably had an accurate count. And unfortunately, and I promise you, I tried very, very hard to figure out what is the best way to track what is happening with our population year to year. The census is still the very best source that we have. It's the most comprehensive, it's the broadest brush, it captures the deepest level of data. But I am constantly on the lookout for other things that could help supplement it. The University of Tennessee, starting next year, will publish their own countywide population estimates. And we will work with them on that, and we'll continue to look to see if there's a better way to gauge what the population is in Nashville at any one time. Right now, census is still the best, and the decennial is still the very best thing that they do.
Oh, no. All right, next question, please.
My name is Harold. I've lived here all my life. I'm not going to tell you how long because then you'll know how old I am. So anyway, I'm trying to think, what is the difference, I guess, between mid-income and affordable housing? Because do you know what Nashville, you may know this, do you know what Nashville was built for? It was built for mid-income people.
Yeah,
That's right, but it's not that anymore. That's a big problem. So, would you agree or disagree that if you have a child or two, they should have at least a quarter acre of land to play in and not the streets? Would you agree or disagree? Because you probably had a quarter acre land or more when you grew up. No?
I don't know that I can agree or disagree with that because people live in different situations.
But a child, though, deserves to have a yard to play in. Yes or no? If you don't answer it, that's fine.
Yes, I would love for children to have yards.
Well, see, it's changing.
In different parts of cities.
I understand that, but see, it's changing. You know, you got houses around here, they're putting 2 or 3, the yards are becoming concrete. We already know that. But, you know, and can you answer, how can a mid-income person live here when they keep building $400,000, $500,000 houses? Can you answer that for me?
Tony.
That's the reason that we need to rezone and get a variety of housing so it's more affordable for people so they can afford it.
We are talking about mid-income people.
Yes.
So is there a difference between affordable housing and mid-income people? Is there a difference there?
Yes, in terms of official statistics, yes, but we want the whole range of, as Greg mentioned, the definitions of affordable housing are very different. We want affordable housing, we want workforce housing, we want housing that everybody can afford, that no matter what your price point is, you have a place that you can live, you can buy and you can live. That's the goal. However you want to describe what it is.
Well, my opinion on that is that can't happen because that's why they're building houses on top of each other. But that's all I want to say about that. I have a question about, can we talk about Thompson Lane? Can we talk about Thompson Lane? Okay. You know as well as I do, Thompson Lane is backed up all over the Kroger entrance at 5 and 4 o'clock, just about every afternoon.
Oh,
I'm sorry, East Thompson Lane. I'm sorry, East Thompson Lane. So anyway, you know, it was a 1-lane. When you go east, turn left, get on 24. It used to be a 1-lane turning lane, which was a nightmare. They made it 2. It's still a nightmare. So I'm trying to figure out how you want to make that you want to turn it into a 1-lane going east and west. And I'm trying to figure out how all these people are moving here and making these streets shorter or narrower. Do you agree or disagree that it will make traffic worse?
The East Thompson Lane project is another project of NDOT because people in the neighborhoods would like to be able to walk to Kroger or ride their bike to Kroger or take other methods to get to Kroger. And they are looking for ways that they might redesign the street in order to make it safer. They did a pilot 2 weeks ago that lowered the speed limit 7 miles per hour. That's part of our high accident. That East Thompson Lane is part of our very high accident, one of our highest accident streets in Nashville. We have a lot of fatalities. They will be, again, they're gathering data. They gathered data then. They will probably be doing another pilot with a different design on the street. I'm not sure if it's later this year, if it's going to be in the spring when school is up and when everything is going figure out a design that they can do that can make it so that they can have a bike lane, people are safe. They also want to put sidewalks in and they want to make sure that they have enough space for this and figure out the best way to put in what is needed to make it a multimodal kind of street so everybody, no matter how you're traveling, is safe. So that's just, again, it's the data gathering portion of that project.
So I have a question. I happened to be at another meeting with some people from planning, and I have different things that I've heard from planning versus your proposal. And it's the concept of the blanket rezone. So my understanding from my other meeting with planning is that when you do a blanket rezone, you give up a lot of your negotiating power as a neighborhood, as a community.
Why is it better to blanket rezone our district when that is the result? I know you're talking about the piecemeal side of it, can be, can cause there to be some non-continuity in your areas. But if we as a group, as a district, could develop an idea of what we want and use that as a negotiating problem for developments, why would we need to do a blanket rezone? Aren't there other strategies to do this instead of a flat blanket rezone? I'd like both of your feedback on that.
So I think the rezoning process is slow, time-consuming, and expensive for property owners to go through. And so what we've seen in a lot of neighborhoods is even in areas that are appropriate and where the neighborhood is welcoming of increased density, the fact that it takes several months and thousands of dollars to go through the rezoning process means that builders will simply do what they can under their existing entitlements, which is the very largest, most expensive house they can build. And so that we think is part of the issue. And so our approach that we're going to be exploring later this year, working with communities throughout the county, is to say, are there places that are appropriate now where we don't need to sort of negotiate case by case? We can simply say, developers, if you want to build this, here's the spot. And it's not them constantly hunting around for like, where can they wedge it in and where can they fit it in, and they've got to cram as much as they can to justify going through the rezone process. So that's the logic of it. That's not something we would recommend sort of across the board everywhere, but we think that it's an important tool that we've underutilized in the past.
And that is what our zoning classifications are now. So, single-family zoning is single-family zoning everywhere. It means the same thing. So a lot of these zoning classifications are already very broadly across districts and across the city. What planning is looking at is changing some of those to simplify that and to be more consistent across a broader swath of the city so that the city can keep the character. So there is very much an advantage to having a blanket zoning that people they know the framework going into it, they know what they're looking at, they know what they can and can't do, and it just really streamlines the process for people and is a lot less expensive because, as Greg said, rezoning is very, very expensive.
All right, next question, please.
Yeah, so I know you spoke a little bit about, I don't need it. I know you spoke a little bit about infrastructure. What? I know you spoke about infrastructure. Both of our elementary schools are planning over capacity, our high schools at capacity. Go ahead, you already want to speak about it and ask the question, but go ahead.
MNPS is involved with the infrastructure review we're doing. So we're taking into account sort of what we expect future growth of school children to be kind of in different parts of the county that we're taking a look at.
That was my question. But I'm gonna just, no, that's okay. I guess the question was as far as like remedies for our students, because like obviously quality of education is a big deal. We already know that this area is our schools are over capacity and at capacity. So as far as upzoning the area, knowing our kids are already, their quality of education is being threatened because they're over capacity, the schools are strained. What are the remedies that happen? Is there going to be a remedy, or will you just simply address it as they did in like the outline, just saying, yeah, they're over capacity?
I understand you work with the other, is there like pods coming in, are there plans for like?
So I think all of that would feed it. So first, the assessment that we're doing now with MNPS is thinking through, if we were to grow in line with Nashville Next, what do they think the implications would be for schools, given their current capacity status? And so part of what they do is they monitor as construction happens, as they start seeing children show up in kind of what is the level at which kind of children show up in the schools where development is happening. And so that feeds into their capital planning process, whether it's new schools that are being proposed, replacement of schools that are existing, or add-ons, or where they may need pods. So all of that feeds into their process for monitoring and maintaining kind of capacity in schools. A lot of that is sort of long-range capital planning, so it's not something they're always able to do kind of on a dime, but it is something that we work with them to understand kind of what the growth impacts are for the kind of where their schools are at.
I'm just, I'm really a nice guy. Just want you to know that. Anyway, getting back to Thompson Lane, I just love Thompson Lane. Okay, it's a nice road. But I was wondering about the school buses. If you narrow this road down to one lane, I wonder, because you have Glencliff Elementary, you have Wright Junior High School, you have Glencliff High School. You got buses up down Thompson Lane all the time, and that's their main route. So I'm just wondering, do you think the students will ever be late because of you narrowed it down to one lane, or say if there was a train on Thompson Lane, and that train can back up that road with 2 lanes, much less 1. So what do you think about the children that go to these 3 schools? Do you think it'll affect them getting to school or getting home?
As I said, NDOT is going to be doing another pilot when school is in session, so that they can see that and look at that and see what the problems might be, so that if they decide to go ahead with changing the road, that they have looked at all of that and the design reflects that, so that to lessen that problem. But that's something, they are still in the data gathering phase for that.
Wouldn't it be nice to have the best of both worlds? Keep our 4 lanes and have our sidewalks on both sides of the roads and bike lanes? Is that possible?
That decision is up to NDOT. I have nothing to do with that.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Next question, please. Come on down.
Hi, I'm Justina Kelly. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Justina Kelly. I am a homeowner in Glencliff. And yes, thank you both for being here tonight. I have a question for both of you, actually. Sincerely, would you say that you are genuinely interested in, I guess, considering your constituents' wishes? Let's say the majority opinion, even if it conflicts with your personal vision or your a political agenda?
Okay, your answer.
There isn't a political agenda in rezoning. It's actually addressing a need. And it's something that the change is going to come, the density is going to come. It's either going to come piecemeal or it's going to come from rezoning, and that's something that we need to look at very broad-based so that we can do it intentionally. There's a wide variety of opinion in this district about rezoning and what people want, and it's almost 50-50 in terms of what people want. It is almost 50-50 in terms of what people want. And that is why I had, that is why each of these areas have actually been doing what they've been doing with surveys and studies to figure out what people want and what they actually want that to look like when all is said and done. So these conversations are ongoing, but there isn't a consensus about what people want and don't want. It's still all a work in progress.
Yes, that's why we do community engagement. We try to hear from everyone that in the community and figure out what is the thing that works best for everybody.
Thank you.
Question.
On August 21st, Ginny and I believe Greg will meet with us for a discussion of the survey of the 3 neighborhoods. So that will add to what we got.
So I'm a little concerned because as a designer who's studied how other cities have grown for a decade, and I read a lot about how other countries are approaching densification, I do think zoning does change things. And my question is, you mentioned that it was too expensive to do anything other than a blanket zoning, but I would argue that the cost of blanket zoning is going to last for many decades. after these changes are made. So what would it take to create a solution where there's more community involvement, more professional involvement, and coming up with a zoned plan with key areas for business, key areas for parks that really serves the community? What would it take to have a different approach that wasn't fast and making it easy for investors? Because we've seen what's happened in the East Bank development where we did a blanket rezoning and now we have a hill full of Airbnbs that are all built by outside investors. So how are you going to approach that, and are you open to a longer process that would serve our community better long term versus just quickly doing blanket zoning?
This is an ongoing process and there's no time frame particularly to this. But there also isn't necessarily any benefit to continue to not actually come to a decision and come to something to take action on, because that can just go for forever and a day. What was the first part of your question?
Are you open to working with the community a little more to maybe take longer, but maybe zones for different areas?
I thought there was, something before that. I've actually been working with the community with quite a few small groups and groups of people throughout the community. And as I say, anybody who has asked me questions or done whatever, I'm happy to sit down and have with people to discuss what I was looking at, why I did what I did, why it came out this way, what planning had to say. And again, planning supported the RM40 because that is in line with Nashville Next. There's no hard and fast decision on anything. These conversations are ongoing. So that's really all I can say to you. They're ongoing. We're still waiting for more pieces from the housing and infrastructure study. And so things will grow as these conversations continue, grow and change as these conversations continue.
So I do have one more question. So what time is it? All right, we got to go in a minute, so I'll make it quick. So given, we spent tons of hours putting this together. Woodbine also spent a lot of time putting their data together. And it seems that we, as a community, are concerned with having more density. That's from our conversations. And you're saying it's been 50-50. I'm just wondering, is that just from your small groups you say you've been talking to, or where's that coming from? Because that's not exactly, it doesn't seem like it's exactly adding that. So I just wanted to ask about that.
It's actually from conversations and emails and phone calls from people. There's a lot of people who can't or don't come to these types of meetings, and they communicate in other ways. Also, it's not developers, for the most part, who are asking me to rezone. It is people in this community who are asking me to rezone for various reasons. So I know there's a perception that it's always developers who want to do it, but that has not been. There are some developers who live here in the district who are doing things, but there are many residents here in the 16th district who want to rezone and have asked for rezones for any number of reasons. So it's a broad gamut. Again, there are 22,000 people in this district, and not everyone participates to the same level, but believe me, when people have a question or a concern, I definitely hear from them and I respond to every single one of them. So.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We will be doing many more of these, and please send your questions. We'll put you guys' email addresses when we post this to Facebook and our website and whatnot. Thank you guys again. If you have any questions, please email them, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.